Hey there, friends. Dave Paulides here for the Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, Season 5, Episode 10. And this has been a little late coming to our big screen because I was gone for 10, 12 days, off the grid, didn't get to watch this, didn't get to see anything. And I'm just getting back to it as fast as I can. So I appreciate you being here. And the reason Huck's not here, she told me the other day that UFOs freak her out and she doesn't want anything to do with them. And so she won't be in. She'll be monitoring remotely and barking orders at me as I go on. So, sat down, watched this very carefully. I enjoyed the segment. So, the episode started off with the crew coming back from the vet, dealing with the cow with the white eyes walking in circles. I had a lot of emails from you guys about that, saying that they didn't believe what the show was saying, but it's a very common condition found in cows. Well, they took it to a vet, and the vet said that the dog was hemorrhaging from inside, and it had a swollen brain. And that's part of the reasons why it couldn't see. So they took the mother cow and the calf off the ranch, and the guy said that after a couple of days, they're both doing a lot better, which is what we want to hear. We don't want to hear any animals getting injured. But that's one reason why they have the animals there, is that seems like things happen to animals first at the ranch. Then they went over to the drill site again. It seems like this season the common points are rockets and drill site in the mesa. Well, again, the drill was stopped when it hit a metal object, they thought. And the cow was stricken adjacent to where they were doing the drilling. They thought that was odd. The driller extracted the rods from the mesa. The beacon signal stopped again when it hit the object. Seems like that every time they're drilling, there's problems. But remember, every time you move dirt on the ranch, you dig on the ranch, bad things happen at the ranch. And that's consistent. They didn't have any visible issues with the drill, but they thought that because the transmitter had stopped transmitting, they pulled it out. Travis went and tested the battery and it was fully charged. So they couldn't explain why everything shut down. It didn't make any sense to them. Well, then they went to Homestead 1 with Travis and Dragon and the husband and wife caretakers at the ranch. And they met a man named Chris Port. And he was an old deputy sheriff from Uinta County. And he had had some calls at the ranch years and years ago. This is something I didn't know, so I learned something. The owner from 47 till 92 was a man named Ken Myers. And Chris got calls there continuously from Ken about unusual things that went on. One of the things was cattle mutilations. And Myers asked him at the time not to talk about it. And this is pretty consistent. People who own cattle do not like to talk about mutilations associated with their herd. It gives a bad connotation to the herd. Maybe there's something wrong with the animal, etc. So they don't want anybody talking about it. This happened to me before when I went out on mutilation cases. So I get it. So Chris said that when he went out, he showed a spot where a cattle was surgically mutilated. He pointed it out. It was kind of near the trees out near the open field. He says from the shoulder blade to the nose, all the vertebrae were gone from the cow. He says there was no blood anywhere, but there was no vertebrae. And he goes, how can I explain that? said this wasn't as though an animal came in and bit it. It was as though it was surgically, technically removed. And then, after they talked about that a bit, he said, yeah, there was one other thing. Yeah, there was one other big thing. And that is he said, near the back of the cow, there's a piece of metal, he said, that looked like aluminum. And he said Ken pointed it out. It wasn't a big piece. But when he opened it up, it was about 10 feet in diameter. And he said he could squash it together like a piece of aluminum, throw it on the ground, and it would slowly open up. The Roswell incident had a piece of metal that was described just like this. So he said it was a piece of metal, kind of in the shape of a craft. Well, the men there said, never heard any of this before. And they said that if they had heard this 5 years earlier, they probably would have just discounted it. But now with all the peculiarities at the ranch, it starts to make some sense to them. What they decided to do is that Chris said that the owner was afraid to say anything about this to anybody because he thought that the government would come out and take control of the ranch because it was so unusual. So Chris said everyone kept quiet about it. So there's a lot of you over the years that have said, well, you know, this is just a short-term peculiarity that's happening at this one place in Utah. That's totally not true. As was just explained in this episode, it goes all the way back to 1947, when the ranch owner had it then. So when Bigelow bought it, he had direct communication with the owner prior to that. But prior to that owner, it was kind of blank. Well, now we have this clarity as to who that prior owner was. And the confirmation that the strange things had been happening way back when. So we study history for a reason, folks. Remember that. So Thomas talks to Travis and Eric. And Travis came back after he heard the whole story and he said, you know what? If just 1% of Chris's story is true, that's astounding. I thought that was an interesting take on it. Said it'd be fantastic. Now, Thomas said, you know, interesting about that area that Chris took us to is he pulled out a picture looking across the meadow at this large tree near where this cow went down, mutilated, and near where they found this piece of metal. And in kind of near the top of the tree is this 10-foot diameter perfect circle right through the middle of this very, very thick tree. Kind of looked like an oak tree. And Thomas said, you know, I always thought that didn't look natural. And coupled with what Chris explained, that would have been a proper trajectory for this piece of metal that crashed onto the ground and left an indentation on the ground that Chris explained. So Travis says, well, let's get an arborist out here to look at that tree. Okay. So they do. They go back to the drill site. Drilling is continuing. Then they go right back into this arborist who arrived. 15 years of experience, certified arborist. They explained to him that they wanted him to go into the tree, look and see if this damage to the tree is natural, etc. The guy went up there and he said, well, there's been damage done to this tree, but it's really old. And he goes, maybe 30 years old. What? 30 years? That's exactly what Chris said. He said the estimated geometry of the hole is about 10 feet, or 10 feet 8 inches. It's a perfect circle. And Chris estimated 10 feet diameter on the craft, or the metal he saw. Now, one thing that the guys didn't do, and I really wish they would have, when you got the guy up there in the tree, why not take a metal detector up there and metal detect the branches surrounding this big hole? I say that under the 1,000,000 to 1 chance that a piece of metal fragment came off in the tree when this object hit the tree. I realize some of you may say, Dave, that's such a stupid idea. Well, that's me. And it's something I would have done just to cover my bases. Because under that 1,000,000 to 1 shot, if they got a piece of unusual metal, they would have hit the jackpot. That's something I still would do. Back at the Mesa, the drilling team was 180 feet in when they lost their signal. Drilling hit something hard. Travis thinks that they are hitting something metallic. And so what they decide to do is, when they pull the drill out, the spoils, the cut up pieces of what they're drilling through, come out into this pen. And then they put it through a metal strainer, just like a siphon. And the guys were going through it all, looking to see what they could find. So one of the guys finds this odd piece of, looks like green gelatin. And it looked odd. It looked out of place. So Eric and Travis looked at it, and they said, hey, let's put this in a water container, a small water container, and send it off to the lab and see what it is. Smart. And the boy said, this kind of matches what Chris said was around the cow and the crash site, which was this green gelatin material. I'm not kidding. Now, I don't know if that interview with Chris, the deputy, was done months or years ago, but it seems awful suspicious that Chris is talking about all these things, and then all of a sudden they're finding all these things. Just saying. Do you believe in coincidence? I don't know. Well, then the guys wanted to know, is it biological or geological? And then they found another piece of almost reddish material. They didn't know what that was. They sent that off. And then Travis found a piece of what he said was processed timber. And he goes, that shouldn't be in there. And they sent that off to the lab. And the thought was maybe it's from a mine shaft in there, and the drill hit it and pulled it out. Well, they put the beacon on the new drill. It quit, not working. They need to go to another 260 feet into the mesa. They pulled it out, and they said that they would have to change frequencies to get it to work. So they sent the spoils to the National History Museum in Salt Lake City, and a man named Dr. Mitchell Powers. And they had him on a Zoom call. And Dr. Powers said that they took these pieces of wood and they photographed them under super high resolution photography. And what they found is on the wood, it had pores that had opened up, like the size of a needlehead, super small, but thousands of them. And he said it wasn't wood, but it was some type of aquatic plant. And that threw everybody. What would an aquatic plant be doing 150 feet inside of this mesa? Nobody could understand that. And it didn't make any sense. And they asked the doctor what he thought, and he said he didn't know. And then there was kind of a roundhouse discussion, and he said, well, maybe you penetrated some kind of ancient wetland inside the mountainside. Sample number 2, the jelly, the green gelatin type material, doesn't match geology of anything in the area. And the green wasn't biologically driven color. And this is the one that really threw him. He said it's a burnt plant material under the green. They kind of washed the green gelatin away. And it's a green plant, it's a plant material that had been burned. And under high resolution microscope, they could see the burnt material inside. And then Travis said later on, I want to get more of that green stuff, and I want to understand what it was. Because nobody really had a good explanation. And then they had a discussion about how could something get burnt so far underground. That's something that wasn't said, but immediately came to my mind, is their belief that there's some type of spacecraft that went in there. Let's pretend for a second there was. What if it was traveling at an unbelievable speed? And what if the craft was so solidly constructed that we couldn't even fathom how well it was made? And it really penetrated. And that penetration into the mountain caused a fire. High friction, high speed. And if there was dried plants around, I'm just speaking out the top of my head. And there was a fire. Well, that could explain the gelatin or the plant material being burnt, right? Well, they didn't really talk about that too much. And they also reminded everybody that the spoils from previous drillings into that same mesa had emitted metallic pieces that were extremely similar to metallic pieces that protect the shuttle when it goes into space. And Travis has been talked about that in the past, and it's always thrown him that it was there. Then they also said, is something of high intellect trying to stop them? I didn't say anything. I just Angie was sitting next to me. I just didn't say anything. Walked around the house, did some things, let my mind kind of fester. And remember, in this same area, we've had UFOs fly in and out of the mesa. And then in an upcoming episode, in this same area, they had a UFO come out, take a look around, and went right back in. Same area. So UFOs going in and out. Something is inside there that's unusual. That's been proven. So if their theory that it's a spacecraft is correct, this is where my mind went. Imagine a mother bear who digs a big den into the side of the mountain. And let's say the bear, part of the den caves in, breaks her back, and she can't move. But her cubs can move in and out. So the cubs consider that home, and they go out every once in a while, forage around, and they come back. They go out every once in a while, forage around, come back, and give a report to mom. Maybe bring some food back to mom. In very rough terms, I kind of thought, what if that big metallic thing that's in the mesa is a big craft, and that is home base to these smaller UFOs that leave and come back? Now, many times, big UFOs have been seen emitting smaller UFOs. As though a mothership emitting smaller UFOs that many believe are drones. They aren't occupied by biological entities, but they're drones, remotely controlled. Go out and fly around. Now, if as they think that is a spacecraft in the side of that mountain, and it's been there for 10,000 years, 20,000 years, and you got these yahoos, the Skinwalker Ranch crew, come on in, start digging around, start making noise, start shooting rockets on your ground that you've lived on for 20,000 years. How would you handle that? Now, that's not my theory, but I always like to think out loud. And I know I'll get attacked for, Dave, that's crazy. Yeah, it probably is. But something really crazy is going on at Skinwalker Ranch. And the guys are doing a methodical job walking through all of the issues. And I admire them for that. Now, just a reminder, Phenomicon is going to be in Vernal, Utah later this summer. I'm going to be one of the speakers along with everybody from Skinwalker Ranch. No, I won't be speaking with them. No, I won't be on stage with them. But I'll be big admirers. And no, I'm not going to go haunt them and track them down. And I don't do any of that. That's not Dave. But I hope the money keeps flowing from the History Channel. I hope these guys keep doing their work because they've got me intrigued. So thanks for being here. That was episode 10, season 5. And I'll have 2 more episodes up to catch you up to speed. Be safe, be kind, Paulides out.